In case we haven't met before, my name's Kirstine, the very Kirstine that Gracie spoke of. Consider yourself in one of my assemblies this morning. Jokes. Particular warm welcome if you're here as a guest or a visitor to support one of the people who've been baptised. Particular warm welcome to you. Particularly if you would never normally come to church. It's a big thing to do, but I know personally how much it means to them. Your support, your love, your championship of them as individuals, of the infants, and showing up this morning means a lot to them. So thank you so much for coming to church. Now, I can see from looking around you, and I've been watching you all this morning, that you do look like a bunch of intelligent, creative, cultured bunch of people. Thank you so much for that, 'cause it's not always like that in here. But I'm sure, like me, you have come to the rightful conclusion that with musical theatre, it doesn't always live up to the hype that surrounds it, does it? However, there is one piece, in my opinion, that stands apart from every other piece of musical theatre. One piece that surpasses the hype that has surrounded it for years upon years, and that is, of course, Les Mis. Right? Les Mis is a masterpiece of musical theatre. If you're yet to see it, go and see it. It's my major bit of advice. Make it your one thing you do in 2025. Go and see it. It is incredible. But there's a part of the play that slightly haunts me, and I thought I'd share it with you this morning. It's a part of the play where the revolutionaries gather together, and just before they go into battle, they have this line, and the line is, "Will the world remember you when you fall? Will the world remember you when you fall?" And when I heard that line being said, I thought, the world better bloody remember me when I fall, because in all honesty, the worst thing that could be said about me on my tombstone is, "Here lies Kirstine. She was boring and forgettable." It's like my deep down fear. Will the world remember you when you fall? Because as much as we might pretend that we don't care whether or not what people think of us, the truth is human nature is designed to care. So will the world remember you when you fall? Or could it be that death actually means nothing at all? Is yours just one more life? Are you a biological being floating around in time, an arbitrary being with arbitrary lives of no greater meaning? Maybe you're a person of faith or interest in the spiritual dimension of life. Well, can I ask you this morning, is that making any difference to you at all? If we can get just a little bit deeper yet, what are you for? What is your purpose? Who even are you? And will the world remember you when you fall? Consider the human progression through life just for one moment with me. Our universal search for meaning and purpose, as has been referenced already this morning. You see, the young children have to learn that they are separate to their parent. Anybody going through the terrible twos, God bless you, it gets better, so I'm told. The teenagers go through the anxiety-ridden years, and then supposedly we reach our 20s and 30s, and life just gets a bit easier. Although I don't think that is the case anymore. But as we get older, it is true to say that the power to self-identify happens through our careers, our relationships, our very life markers. As we become a wife or a husband or a partner, a homeowner, an employee, we become something, don't we? Or at least the world says we should. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I can lose confidence in the very things that are supposed to define me and give me meaning and purpose. Which probably shouldn't come as a shock, because 30% of 25 to 29-year-olds live at home with their parent. And marriage is on the decline, and only 55% of Generation Z and millennials want to have children these days anyway. And let's be honest, those of us that are millennials or Gen Zs, we know that we're the first generation to be worse off than our parents. The wage the job insecurities, the wage shortages, the housing shortages, well, they've created this massive generational wealth gap. And the notion of life stages have truly been redefined. Now we've got the quarter-life crisis, the middle-life crisis, the later-life crisis. Crises seem to be all around us. And will the world remember us when we fall? And most of us probably know by now that we will not be satisfied with our lot in life if we simply reduce our sense of purpose and meaning down something personal like money or fame or career success. It's simply not enough in and of itself. It doesn't satisfy the human hunger, the hunger of the human heart. And it certainly doesn't comfort us in the darkest depths of the night. Most of us here know that it's personal relationships that matter. Personal relationship to the place in which we find our meaning, our sense of purpose. It's personal relationships where we can find comfort, because no one exists in a vacuum. And in choosing to be baptized, Malachi, Mary, and Gracie have made it clear They've spoken of people who have indeed loved and supported them, but they've spoken of a person who has transformed them. They've spoken of this transcendent relationship with God, one that is open to everyone. And while it's true to say that we do all need to have significant relationships in our lives, the Christian belief is that it's this one relationship with Jesus where our true sense of identity and what we are for can be established. It's the Christian contention that unless that fundamental relationship with God, the person of Jesus, is in place, then our sense of purpose and who we are and what we're for will never fully be satisfied. In fact, we will go on looking and looking and looking. Let me tell you a little bit of my story. I grew up attending church, and to be honest with you, I found it quite boring and incredibly judgmental. I grew up in quite a dysfunctional family. My dad was an alcoholic, he was abusive to us, and my dad's thing that he used to do to me regularly was say to me, you're not loved. You are not loved. And he would go to great lengths to make sure I understood that. Church wasn't interesting to me, particularly as a teenager, because it wasn't a place that I could actually bring my questions, particularly my question around the very person who'd helped create me not loving me. What was I supposed to do with that? They didn't like the questions. So I left as soon as I could. I left as a teenager. I moved up to London. I got a job as a makeup artist in the fashion industry, and I absolutely loved life. I worked incredibly hard to ensure I was successful, to leave the stuff of the past in the past. I can talk about my joy of seeing my work in print. I can talk about the thrill of backstage at Fashion Week. It was an exciting time, and I was living my best life, or at least for a certain time, I was. But the buzz of the industry also brings with it the lonely nights of hotel trips when you're away on work trips. It also brings with it the stress of whether or not you're going to secure that job to pay your rent at the end of the month. And it also brought with it the shame I felt when my friends would get jobs and be picked of things that I had also put myself forward for. My world really existed of parties and drinking and sex, and for a while that was enough. But there was something within that told me that I wasn't quite satisfied. And then a friend one day invited me to church. And I distinctly remember walking through the doors and having this sense that I had come home. I wouldn't have worded it like that at the time, but I knew something. And as I looked around the room, the people looked pretty normal. They appeared to have normal jobs, they dressed okay, and they didn't seem particularly judgmental. And I was interested. I would go back week after week. I did a course where I could ask questions about the faith they believed in, things that I thought and the things that I believed in, the stuff that I'd kind of brought up and inherited. And eventually, someone offered to pray for me. And I remember thinking, I've hung around enough now. Let me see. And as I opened myself and got prayed for, I had this overwhelming sense that I was loved. I couldn't explain it other than I knew in the very depths of my being that I was loved in a way that I had never experienced before. It was life-changing for me. And ultimately, like Mary, like Gracie, like Malachi, I discovered Jesus. And I discovered that he was indeed the person that could define my life. He was indeed the person who loved me unconditionally. And he was indeed the person that would satisfy my deepest desires. You see, Jesus is uniquely concerned with the questions of humanity. Questions like, who am I? What is my purpose? What am I for? In fact, he spent his whole entire life trying to get people to engage with those exact questions. Let me tell you very briefly of one such encounter that we read about in the Bibles. It happens in the Gospels of John. I'm going to retell it for you this morning. It's about the Samaritan woman, and she's had multiple partners. She's shunned by her community and her family, so much so that she can only go to the well to get water in midday heat because she can't go with anybody else. She's living life in an isolated way. And on this particular day, she approaches the well, and there's a Jewish man there. And the cultural norms of the day were that the Jewish people and the Samaritans, well, they didn't interact. And she tells them this, and they kind of, her and this gentleman, they have this kind of back and forth about the cultural norms of the day. And eventually the guy cuts through all the crap and he says, I know you. I know that you have had multiple husbands. And he doesn't do it in a shaming way, I don't think. Much more in a way to say, I know you and I see you. I know who you are. And I see your desire for more. And I alone can satisfy it. And he goes on to say this particular word. He says, everyone who drinks from this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become a spring of water welling up to eternal life. It is an extraordinary claim. He stands before her and says, I am the one who can satisfy your deepest desires. I am the one that will define your life. I will give you purpose and meaning. He says to all those today searching for meaning and purpose, I am the one that can define you and show you who you really are. He says to all of those burdened by life and weary, I and I alone can give you rest. And as Gracie alluded to and Malachi said, he is the one who, when you go through tough times in the darkness of the night, will say, I can comfort you. So for all those wondering, will the world remember you when you fall? If you, like me, are haunted by those sorts of lines that get said, it's because he is the one who says, yes, your acknowledgement that you are made for significance is true. Your desire for more is true. And what he actually says is that your life carries significance. And we see it and we sense it. And it's been spoken of this morning. There is a deeper yearning stirring inside of us. And it's that stirring for significance that Jesus says he can define and he alone can satisfy. And so what if? What if the God who created the universe chose to enter the story of humanity? Not as a distant observer, but as one of us. Stepping into our brokenness, our longings, our desires, our daily struggles. And what if in Jesus, God showed us a love so profound and a grace so undeserving that it rewrote everything we understand? So much so that we tried to silence him and put him upon a cross. But what if death is not the end of the story? And what if God's answer to our rejection is in fact resurrection, offering a hope that transcends our failures in a life that death cannot define? And what if God promises to comfort you in the darkness of the night? You see, that is the Christian claim that's been spoken of this morning. That God comes near, as close as hands and feet, as near as breathing. And he doesn't just remember you when you fall, he reaches down and picks you back up. He offers you a love that is so profound that it can define your very meaning and give you a purpose that goes beyond the fleeting moments of this world. You see, I want to suggest to you this morning that God is real, that he doesn't just like you, but he loves you passionately. He knows every hair upon your head, every thought that you have, every concern that you carry. He is the very one who can tell you who you are and what you are for. And so if this morning you've heard what's been spoken about and it has stirred something within you, you've got questions. Maybe you're a guest or someone's been baptized and you are thinking, what on earth is it they believe? Then we've learned here that there's this thing to offer space that you can ask questions. It's called the Life Course. And the Life Course is a place, like I've said, that you can bring your questions. You can reflect on what does our best life look and feel like. There's a video behind me playing where it's going to show you what it's like. We gather here over 7 weeks and we have a general theme of what does it look like to live our best life. And we go through this, we have presentations and then there's small group discussions. The evenings are relaxed, they're non-judgmental, they're informal, and everyone is welcome to have their say if they would like to. We always start with dinner together. I promise you the food is excellent. And the people are always interesting because they're just like you. They're atheists and agnostics, people who've had a hazy experience of the Christian faith, people of all kinds of beliefs and interests in the spirituality and none. But the overwhelming experience and response that we have had is that people have thoroughly enjoyed their time on it. And I think you would enjoy it too. You can come once and never return. We promise we will not hunt you down. We do not want your money. We're not trying to induct you into our cult here. We simply know that experiences hold us, that people do value a place to ask questions, to give themselves time to ponder. And the next course starts this Wednesday and you'd be really welcome to come. Allow me to personally invite you. We gather here 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. And if you would like to come along, you can scan this QR code that's on the screen. There's flyers around. My colleague Sally will be at the back by a table. You can come and speak to me or Matt after the service. We would love to answer any questions that you may have.